Marvel's Spider-Man 2, the super sequel to both Marvel's Spider-Man and Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. This game got a crazy amount of hype when it was announced, and with everybody else, I was right there, straight geeking. This game promised following a larger-than-life adventure with Peter Parker and Miles Morales as they took on many threats to the safety of New York. As I did with the first two games, I want to explore a new musical direction for this game as well. But because there are so many things I could cover, and my hype would only be satisfied by doing so, we'll be doing just that. In this new 3-part series, we'll be experimenting with different elements of the Marvel Spider-Man 2 musical soundscape. So, without further ado, this is how Marvel Spider-Man 2 should have sounded. Alongside high-energy set pieces and 2 playable Spider-Men, the game features some crazy boss battles. Today, we're going to explore one of the most memorable bosses in the game, the Lizard. So we're going to be looking at a few key points in the story. So if you're trying to avoid spoilers, you might want to watch this later. Following Harry Osborn's terminal diagnosis, Dr. Kurt Connors becomes his doctor, desperately searching for a way to cure Harry. Harry's treatment involves a black suit that came from space, which bonded with Peter in an act to save his life. However, Kraven, in search of his perfect final hunt, finds Connors and turns him back into the Lizard. Trying to return the black suit to Harry to keep his health from declining, this causes Peter and Miles to search for the Lizard so they can change him back into Connors and he can save Harry. Both the Hunters and the Spider-Men chase the Lizard and eventually lose him. However, Peter and Miles use a blood sample to track the Lizard to the sewers. Peter goes alone, leaving Miles to take care of other matters. Peter then closes in on the Lizard, and the two begin brawling. Peter struggles to restrain the Lizard so he can use an antidote to change him back into Connors. A high-speed chase through the city then ensues, drawing the attention of Kraven and his hunters. Eventually, Peter and the Lizard fall back into the sewers, where Peter gets the upper hand and uses the antidote on the Lizard. The Lizard turns back into Connors, and the two get back to Connors' underground lab. The original music for the Lizard boss fight follows the same style as the music in the franchise as a whole. Basically, we have the orchestra back at it again. Now, my internal conflict is that the music is good overall. However, there isn't much that jumps out and grabs me, you know what I mean? I was listening to the Insomniac Spider-Man OSTs the other day. Spider-Man 2 didn't have nearly as many distinctive themes and tracks that stood out to me, like Miles Morales or even the first game. However, there were some interesting musical moments in this fight. Firstly, the build-up to fighting the Lizard was cool. And then when the symbiote holds back the Lizard's hand, it's a cool bit of ear candy. But at the same time, it feels a little out of place. I'm thinking this is most likely because the choir doesn't take more of a central role in the music after this moment, even during the second phase of the fight, where Peter leans more into the symbiote's influence. But anytime Kraven shows up, I always enjoy hearing that drum cadence come in. But what can we do to give the boss fight a more distinctive sound throughout? For the remake of the Lizard boss fight, the main objective I set for myself was to bring in the rock aesthetic that I used in my remake of the first Marvel Spider-Man game. Now, the goal was to create an intense, high-energy theme that would follow the dynamics of the fight. So, for the first cutscene, I start with a simple synth pulse. Then the music builds up with orchestral elements as the Lizard appears. Now here, the main goal was to capture the suspense and threat of the Lizard, leading into our confrontation. Once the fight begins, the main guitar riff begins, and so does the heavy rock orchestral blend. The main tone of this section is to convey the high-energy action that is going on in the fight. The distorted guitars and acoustic drum kit help give this section of the remake an edge. The Lizard is a pretty tough boss, especially on the first go-round, so I wanted to capture the grit that a fight like that would entail. Throughout the fight, we have moments when I change the score to both create some dynamics and coincide with the changes in the battle. Once we deplete the Lizard's health to 0, we shift musical momentum again to show Peter's struggle, eventual success, and then failure to subdue the Lizard. The Lizard escapes to the surface and the music shifts to accompany the faster pace that the fight is about to take on. I start this section with a new string ostinato, which is the foundation for this section. I bring back the guitars and the drum kit to pair with the orchestra and create a bombastic and brash sound. At this point, I want the music to capture the destruction that the lizard is causing in the city. We also have the section of the chase where Kraven's hunters appear. Now, this part of the remake, honestly, was driven by that inner desire that says, I just want to make something that sounds cool. So it was a mix of something that sounds cool, but also something that raises the stakes a bit with the hunters now involved. This section continues until Kraven appears on the roof of the building. Then we get one more dose before crashing into the sewers. And for the second round of the fight, we take the energy of the first round and make it more sinister. At this point, the symbiote is getting a stronger hold on Peter. He starts tweaking. I take the motif and ostinatos from the first round and modulate them down to a lower key. This supports the darker shift as the symbiote begins to alter Peter's personality to the point of him saying things that are out of character. I also bring back the heavy guitar from the first round of the fight for the purpose of adding to the grit that we've developed and preserving the rock orchestral blend. As the lizard finally goes down, we use the orchestra to create a triumphant ending. The point of this section is to wrap up all of the action that we just participated in and convey the completion of the mission. Finally, we use the drone from the beginning of the remake to close out the cutscene. Now with all that out of the way, we can finally get to the fun part. So here's the remake for the lizard boss fight in Marvel Spider-Man 2.
Okay, what are we working with here? That's not it. Nope. Hey, Doc. Ready for your annual physical? I got this. We've been through this before, Connors! If you're in there, I could really use your help! You're Kurt Connors, a brilliant scientist! You made some mistakes, but it doesn't have to end like this! Is this how you want your family to remember you? You can still be with them! Think of your wife! Your son! They need you! This tape's a real problem. Don't let your son grow up without his dad! You gotta fight for him! mood for the rampaging lizard in New York City thing right now! This is not happening! Stop! You're hurting people! Great! Now the police are involved! People, stay back! Slow down! Officers, you're not helping! Are you kidding me, Connors? You know I don't want to do this! Stay still! Hunters! Really? You asked for this! Hunters! I told you to stay away! Getting real sick of this lizard hunting. I don't have time for this! Hunters! Here it comes! You can't get through his skin! Stuck! I am not losing this antidote! Whoa! Oh crap! What are you gonna do at the top? Fly away? Nowhere to go! Connors! Such a beautiful creature. I got you! Regeneration is so cool and so gross. Fine. If I have to hurt you, I will. Almost forgot. You picked up a new trick. After all the times I've helped you, I figured you could return the favor for once. Now's my chance. You're too weak to get control back, aren't you? I'm gonna have to punch you out myself! lizard on mute! I can't do this forever. I'm not even doing this for me! Harry needs you! You remember him? He's dying, Doc! I can't lose him! You're the only one who can help him! His mouth! I can inject the antidote into his gums if I get close enough!
So, in Spider-Man 2, how do you think the lizard boss fight should have sounded? Now, if you like cinematic soundscapes, check out my video on the game Shadow Generations, where we flip the traditional Sonic sound to see how a more cinematic sound would fit in that game. Hey, thanks for tuning in, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.